بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Last time we had left off talking about how to deal with nawahi, or how to deal with prohibitions and when they're mentioned in the Quran. When do we take out? So we said, like, when there is a prohibition in the Quran, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says don't do this, or the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said stay away from this, what are the two possibilities we can take away? What are the two possible rulings we can take away from those prohibitions? Oh, it could be haram or makruh. Okay, how is this different from orders? Like, so we said that awamir, or commands that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives, we said that those have how many possibilities? They have three. So what is the additional possibility with commands that we don't have with prohibitions? Permissible, right? Mubah. So this is something that is unique about nawahi. This is something that is unique about prohibitions, is that you don't have this category of permissibility with them. It's either going to be haram or no, makruh, right? It's either going to be haram or makruh. Either it's going to be impermissible or it's going to be disliked. So I think we talked about these three verses last week. So let's move on to some new ones. أَتَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبِرِّ وَتَنْسَوْنَ أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ تَتْلُونَ الْكِتَابَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. So over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, how can you tell people to do what is right and forget to do it yourselves, even though you recite the scripture? Have you no sense? So what is the prohibition here? Or is this a dislike? Is this makruh or haram? And what is the ruling? And what is the ruling on?
I think it's dislike.
I'm sorry?
Haram.
Hypocrisy. Okay, hypocrisy. So over here, the type of hypocrisy that's being given. So let me give an example. If an individual smokes and he tells somebody else not to smoke, is that haram for him to tell the other person? No. Is it disliked? Neither. What is it? So what's the problem then? So we know the problem isn't in him saying something. The problem is what? Doing it. His action, right? The problem is his action. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is focusing on here. And how do we know that? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says to command the good and forbid the evil. Does he say only good people command the good? Right? Or only non-sinners command the good? No, he doesn't say that. So over here, so do you see what's happening and how we break down the verses and how the fuqaha deal with these things? It's important to identify what issue is being discussed. Because if you're unable to identify the issue that's being discussed, you will never figure out on how to apply the hukum and how to apply the ruling. And this is why it's important to have this survey. There's a reason that I chose all these verses. I know it might feel a little tedious. We're going through a lot of different verses, but the purpose of this is to show this is what the faqih does. This is what the uṣūli does. He doesn't take one or two verses. He takes all of the verses that have a similar type of construction. If it's an order, he'll look at all of the verses that have orders in them. If it's prohibitions, he'll look at all of the verses that have prohibitions in them. Why? So he can see if there's a pattern, so he can see how to extract a ruling, so he can see the context of how all of these things are done. And by the time, inshallah, we get to these end of set of verses, you guys will have a general idea on how some of these rulings were actually made. The idea, again, of this course is to help us understand, how does the uṣūli think? Yani the legal theorist, how does he think? How did he come up with these rules? Because you have people like Ghazali, or you have people like Imam al-Haramain who we're studying with. They didn't just come up with these rules, right? Just like a couple, they read the Quran one time and they're like, okay, this is da da da. No, it's not like that. This was after a lot of ta'ammul, after a lot of tadabbur, a lot of tafakkur, after pondering and spending time with these verses, spending time with these ahadith, that they're able to actually come up with the rulings that are mentioned. The next one here, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu lima taquluna ma la taf'alun. That you who believe, why do you say things and then do not do them? Same thing, right? Over here, the problem is in the hypocrisy. The problem isn't in the fact that they're telling other people, right? This is something that's never going to be prohibited. We always command the good, we always forbid the evil, regardless of who that person is. Over here, the next verse. وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. Those who are saved from their own soul's greed are truly successful. So here, what is the thing that is being discussed? What is the problem? Or is there no problem? It's a little bit blurry, like slightly. Am I making it worse? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I thought it was my glass one.
Okay, well, alhamdulillah, that's much clearer now. So over here, what is the thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing out for us?
Someone who fights his greed.
I'm sorry?
So he is encouraging to fight our greed.
So Allah subhanahu
calling it success.
right? So the success in fighting greed. So over here, the prohibition is against what?
Greed.
Against greed. So what is the hukum on greed? Uh-huh. Is it haram or is it disliked?
It's a dislike because it's bad.
Uh-huh.
It's general, it's bad, it's ambiguous,
Uh-huh.
it's not nothing specific.
Right. So shuh is something that is definitely ambiguous, right? There's nothing specific there. So at what point would greed become haram? Mumtaz, like, alhamdulillah, like. So there are two conditions. Either if through this greed I'm taking one of Allah's rights, or I'm taking the rights of another. Oh, I forgot something. Here, the next verse. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعدكم مغفرة منهم وفضلا. That shaitan threatens you with the prospect of poverty and commands you to do for or stay away from. To do foul deeds. Allah promises you for His forgiveness and His abundance. So over here, what are the two things that are, or is there a ruling that we can take from this verse? There's no specific ruling that we can take away, but what are some things that we can be aware of, or what are some things that we can benefit from in this verse?
Like what Allah is giving us compared with what Shaitan is giving us.
Okay, so Shaitan, what is he talking about? He says over here, he gives faqr and fahsha, right? Poverty, and he commands you to do foul deeds. Over here, so if we know that Shaitan is commanding us to do these things, we should do the opposite. So when he talks about poverty, obviously he's not promising us poverty, but what is he saying? What is it that Shaitan, what is his relationship to poverty, or what is he saying about poverty that it affects us?
He wants us to fear something other than Allah.
Right? So he's instilling that sense of fear for sure. But what is that fear?
So let me rephrase, he's preventing us from being generous, from being.
All right. So here, this is a warning against generosity. And that if you, because basically, and very logically, if I give my money, what happens? How much do I have? So if you keep giving your money, you're going to be poor. If you give your money away, then how are you going to save? How are you going to have wealth? How are you going to have all of these things? How are you going to have nice things? Right? So this is what he is scaring us of. And he's commanding us to do foul deeds. Why? What benefit do I have in lying or stealing or cheating? Why would I agree to these things? These are things that the nafs doesn't like. Right? Nobody likes, I mean, unless you're like completely foul, but like, no, normal people, they don't like cheating. They don't like stealing. They don't like lying. So what is it? Why are these things, why do they become attractive?
You feel like you don't have an option.
Right? So sometimes you don't feel like an option, right? And because one of the problems is what? That fear of poverty. Right? If you don't lie, you're going to miss out on this opportunity. If you don't cheat, you're not going to get your money and you're going to become poor. So this fear of poverty is something that is substantial. It's something that's real. And for him to utilize that fear of poverty, what does that say about us as humans? We are material, right? In that we have a natural love for wealth, right? That natural love of wealth, the shaitan, he's going to utilize that as a wedge to convince us to do the things that normally we don't want to do. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he talks about his abundance and his forgiveness. Does he address poverty directly? Right? Allah doesn't say here, like, I guarantee, like, if you worship me, you're not going to fall into poverty. You're not going to fall into faqr. So what should that tell us? One thing, the nature of our relationship with Allah is that what? Just because I pray doesn't mean what?
It's not an exchange. It's not
right. It's not an exchange, right? So this here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is defining his relationship for us, telling us it's not an exchange. Just because you pray, you're not going to get money. Just because you made hajj, it doesn't mean you're going to get a nice house. Or just because you fast doesn't mean you're going to get a job. But that's not how the relationship works. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but what he does promise is what? His forgiveness, maghfirah. And fadl, right? Fadl, so fadl is you can describe it as abundance, you can describe it as virtue. So the fulfillment here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is basically saying that it's not guaranteed that you'll get worldly fulfillment, but you are guaranteed to get what? The hereafter. Or also, what do I get some benefit in this world or no? What? I get spiritual fulfillment, right? I get spiritual fulfillment. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to return back to. And that we remember him, and that we draw near to him, and we draw closer to him, and that we remember that we are the ones who are in need of him. He is not in need of us. The next verse. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ مَنْ كَانَ مُخْتَالًا فَخُورًا الَّذِينَ يَبْخُلُونَ وَيَأْمُرُونَ النَّاسَ بِالْبُخْلِ. That Allah does not like arrogant, boastful people who are miserly and order other people to be the same. I'm
leaving.
You sure?
Yeah. Here.
No problem. So over here, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like something, when Allah dislikes something, that tells us that it is what? Is it permissible to be arrogant?
No.
Is it permissible to boast?
No.
Is it permissible to encourage other people to be cheap and miserly? No. Right? All these things are extremely problematic. Over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, وَلَا تُبَذِّرُوا تَبْذِيرًا إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Do not squander your wealth wastefully. Those who squander are the brothers of shaitan. So over here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also setting us a guideline on spending. That it is not permissible for me to what? Not necessarily spend, like we spend. Like, if I buy, I'm sorry, it's public. Squander means to waste your money.
Waste your money.
Yeah.
What's spending?
In spending. Yeah, spending your money. Like spending is different. So over here, and if I buy a nice car, am I being wasteful? It depends. Okay. Forget Mercedes. You know what? I'm going to go to the next level. I bought a Rolls Royce Phantom. So over here, so I think this is a good point of discussion. Okay, so how do you define squandering? How do I define wasting my money? How do I define wasting my money? Because there's a difference between spending my money and wasting my money. Yes. So over here, when do I go from spending into israf? When do I go from spending into excess?
There's no need maybe for the money.
What's the limit of that?
How do we define the limit? There has to be a limit. Okay, yeah.
For somebody,
it's normal.
Spending for other people, I don't know.
Yeah. So what does it mean? No, there has to be a clear meaning to it.
Make it clear for me.
Yeah.
I think when you're spending your money on something not like something not to dislike or
okay, I have 8 pairs of shoes. Am I squandering? Am I falling into israf?
Yes.
Yes.
That's my question.
MashaAllah. How many shoes do you have with you? You have 1? Yeah. I'm gonna buy you 7 more.
Again, we could use this formula of the rights of Allah, the rights of others.
And that's exactly what it is.
Because
Yeah. So the thing is, how do you classify it? The same way. Okay, with the same exact formula. If I'm spending and I'm taking from Allah's rights, meaning that I'm spending so much that I'm not giving sadaqah, I'm not giving zakah at all, then this is where it becomes haram, and this is where it becomes israf. If I'm taking from people's rights, if I'm taking my child's money, if I'm taking my wife's money, you know what I mean? Why? Because they have a right on me. And if I'm not spending on them, but if I'm fulfilling Allah's rights and I'm filling the people's rights who have a right upon me, any other money I spend is what? It's halal. It's permissible. Like, is it better for me to give sadaqah? Yeah, but that is what? Better. And that's a choice. Does that help?
Yeah.
So that's all that squandering means. And if my spending forces me to fall into haram, and if I can afford a nice car, no problem. But what if I buy 7 of those cars and I have to take loans to buy them? Right. This is where I start falling into issue. Yes.
For example, some people,
Uh-huh.
You make Hajj once in your life. It's possible. Some people, they go 10 times.
Yeah.
This is wasteful for us.
No,
Instead of
I don't think so.
spending that money in another way, they go to Hajj 10 times.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I don't see a problem. Whose rights are
There's
they
khilaf
taking?
on that. They say
Yeah.
if they put that money in another way, they get to the
But what did we say?
Yeah.
That is what?
Ah.
That might be better.
Yeah, better.
But that's it. That's the most you can say. It might be better for them to do this. But at the end of the day, who am I
Why
to
they do
decide?
that?
Huh?
Why they do that?
It's up to them. Yeah, if I can do anything, that's better. But does it mean now I can tell other people they have to do that? No, it doesn't give me that right. If somebody wants to make Hajj every single year, Allah yuwafiqhu, and may Allah bless him and increase him. But did he take Allah's rights?
His own money.
It's his money. He can spend his money however he wants.
But some there's khilaf on this thing. It's better if you use
It is what? You keep using the same word.
Yeah.
It is what? Better.
Yeah, it's
But you're telling, is he a sinner if he does it? خلاص انتهى الأمر. That's all that concerns us. Because at the end of the day, we have to define what is the level of haram. That's what we need to define. And as long as people are not falling into it, inshallah, they're safe. Can we advise them for better ways? Yes. No, we can. But at the end of the day, that advice, because this is another issue. We had talked about advice before too. When should I advise someone? Huh? When they ask. I think that's an excellent criteria. If somebody asks me, I can go and I tell them. But can I just walk up to someone like, Akhi, why are you making Hajj again this year? Because what will that do? The moment I do that with someone, what happens? It becomes a confrontation. And confrontations are what? Those are impermissible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold me accountable for why am I hurting my Muslim brother or sister? The only time I'm allowed to confront or affront someone is if there is a clear violation. Somebody lied, somebody stole, somebody backbite, somebody did namima, right? These are all things that we know are haram. But can I walk up to someone, Akhi, why did you pray like that? Yeah, Ukhti, you're not wearing your hijab properly. Is this building relationships in the community? No. This is destroying relationships. And all that good that I think I'm doing in my head, you know what I'm only doing? I'm only making my nafs and my ego feel better. That's the only reason I'm telling people. It's not because I want to do islah. If I wanted to do islah, I'd walk up, Assalamu alaikum, akhi. What's your name? Mashallah, this is the first time I'm seeing you. Da, da, da. Next time I say him, hey, what's going on? It's good to see you again. Hey, akhi, I noticed. Da, 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 da. Why? Because now I've established a relationship with him, and he might be more willing to listen to what I have to say. But the reality is, I don't know the situation of the person who's walking into the masjid. I don't know where he's coming from. I don't know his background. I've had people come in and they're being corrected, and I'm like, he came to take a shahada. If you want to correct him on something, correct his Islam. Don't. You're worried about how he's dressed. Oh, it's like, oh, so he's walking in with a girlfriend, or listen. Is he disrespecting the space? That's the only question that concerns me. And what is disrespectful? If somebody comes in with very revealing clothing, I'll be like, Malash, this is a place of worship, right? Why? Because there's a clear disrespect that's happening there. But if somebody's coming in and dressed normally, I'm not necessarily wearing hijab or whatever, but dressed normally, like, how can I help you? Right? How can I help? Like, what's going on? And then you say, I'm sorry?
Okay, appreciation.
Yeah, no, of course. Okay, here. If hurting the Muslim is sinful, then making the Muslim feel good is what? It's what? What I will get what? I'll get hasanat. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Ibtisam fi wajhi akhik sadaqah." He said that smiling in your brother's face is what? And sadaqah is what? A reward. There's a reward in it. So if being bad to people is a sin, that means being good to people is rewarding. And the Prophet ﷺ, he says, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأَتِمَّ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ, that I have been sent to perfect character. What is character? Being good with people. That's all it is. Can I have good character in the middle of a forest by myself? Like, who am I showing the character? Can I be loyal? Can I be generous? Can I be kind in the middle of the forest by myself? No, I have to show those characteristics with other people. It's not possible that I do these in a vacuum. I have to be involved with other people. And even the Prophet ﷺ said, the one man sabara ala adha an-nas, yani the one who is patient with the people's trial, with the people's difficulty, that is the one who's actually going to get more rewards. Not the one who goes and he lives in a cave or he moves out in the middle of the mountain like, I can't deal with people. Like, if I can't deal with people, you know where the problem is? The problem is me. The problem is me. The problem is me. Yeah. If I and you know who does this the most? Individuals who say, oh, these people or our community or these people and that person, they do. Why are you so busy looking at other people? Why are you so busy worried about what other people are doing? And and whenever I say this, I always get a response. Tayyib Sheikh, what about those people who? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Worry about ourselves. This is the priority. This is what we have to do. As for other people, when they ask us, if I'm really worried, build a relationship. Go and talk to them. Sit down with that brother or sister. See where they're at mentally. There are some people, it's like going to advise someone, the brother has a mental health issue. What are you going to advise him? Like, there are people who have real problems. How am I really going to benefit him? How am I really going to benefit her?
We have a lot of bipolar.
Huh?
In the morning, they're very good. Nighttime, they fight. What are you going to do? Shut with that?
Find out what's wrong. Seriously. Yeah. And no, I'm saying, so what is it? What happens between the morning and the evening? They've been fasting all day. They're so they get angry. They're not bipolar. They're just upset. They're frustrated. They want to eat. You're not giving them food fast enough, Atiyah. So we have to sit down and we have to try to understand. If we work to understand others, people will appreciate that more from us. The Prophet ﷺ, it wasn't an accident that people would come to seek him out. It wasn't an accident that people, when they would see him somewhere, you know what they would do? They would go and they would try to sit too. Whenever he was going somewhere, people would try to catch him and try to be with him. If they saw him sitting down with someone, they would ask where he is. Where's the Prophet ﷺ? I want to go sit with him. I want to see him. I want to sit down with him. Now it's like, where's Sheikh so-and-so? He's over there. Oh, okay. Right? Like you want to walk the other direction because you're like, I don't know what he's going to say. I don't know if he's going to criticize me. I don't know if he's going to put me down. These are big problems. Or I don't want, oh man, I can't deal with so-and-so. Not a single companion said this about the Prophet ﷺ. And there's only one situation where this happens. Do you guys know? Is with Abu Huraira. So the Prophet ﷺ would be walking and Abu Huraira, every time he saw him, he would kind of duck away. And then finally the Prophet ﷺ called, he said, what's going on? He said, why do you keep ducking away? He was like, I was junub and I was scared to meet you. But and that's the only situation. Otherwise, you have people walking up to him saying, "Adhinni and azni," and give me permission to make zina. Just imagine the comfort level that you have with this person that you're willing to ask this type of permission. And this is the type of relationship that he sallallahu alaihi wasallam had. And even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about him, "Law kunta fadda ghalid al-qalb lan fadda min hawlik." That had you been hard-hearted and stern and judgmental, like, you need to do this, you're like this, go get up and pray your 2 rak'ah again, you go and do this, what are you doing here? You think that this is attractive? You think people are going to come around that person? No. Yeah, very judgmental. And then we wonder and we complain about our kids, like, oh, our kids don't want to come to the masjid. Why? Oh, because the ammus, they're always saying something to us, or like, the sisters, they're always saying something to us, like, oh, khalas, I don't want to go, I don't want to deal with that. Are they right for not coming? No, they're wrong for sure. But why are we giving a reason? Why are we providing reasons?
Because the parents, they're not raising right.
Well, I don't know about how every parent is raising their children, but the one thing that I can say is one of the faults that we have is, as many parents, they're still back in their home countries mentally. Okay. They're still back home. So when they come here and they see like a Pakistani kid and they're from Somalia, they're like, okay, how come he doesn't look like from my back home? Or if they see even another Somali kid, this Somali kid third generation. You know, his grandfather came to America. And his father was born in America and he was born in America. What connection does he have with Somalia?
Zero.
He has zero. There's zero. But we still want to treat them like he's Somali. Or we still want to treat him like he's Kenyan. Or we still want to treat him like he's Egyptian or Pakistani or wherever he's from. Is that fair? And I've had parents tell me like, no, my son is Somali. And I was like, why do you have pizza? Why do you have pizza every time that you have a gathering then? Why is he eating American food? And how come he's not eating your food? He's speaking, they don't like it. They don't like it. They don't like it not because the food is bad, but their tongues are different. Their palate is different. Their tastes are different. And we have to recognize that.
I raise my children and they're born here.
Yeah.
I teach my language.
Yeah.
Because I know when they go to school, they're gonna learn English.
They're gonna learn English. No, so
and they eat Somalian food. And they speak Somali.
No, but Fatia, there's a difference. There's a difference between teaching our children their heritage and making them take a culture. I can't force my child to be Pakistani or Somali or he can only be American. That's it. That's the only choice he has. Does it mean that he can't be proud of his heritage and where he's from? But how many of us teach the history of our countries or where we're from? Nobody. No, I'm saying even when my parents, they would teach me Urdu, I'd say, okay, what is the utility? Why should I learn Urdu? Even somebody who says Somali, like, why should I learn Somali? If your son asks you, why should I learn Somali?
Because you can talk to his grandmom or grandfather.
Okay, and after they pass away, who am I going to talk to?
Me, I'm still alive.
You speak English, alhamdulillah. And the thing is, like, we have to understand that break will occur. And again, it doesn't mean that we can't be proud of our heritage. And let me put it to you a different way. If we tell our children today, hey, I think you should learn Arabic, you know, many of them will say, okay, or, you know, it's hard or whatever the case might be, but they're not going to ask why. You know why? Because they understand the value. What is the value? The value is in understanding the deen. That's the value for them. But for me, as a second, third generation, whatever the case might be, you tell me, okay, learn the language of your home people. Why? Where's the value?
Well, I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
If the Chinese people, Chinese American, they're born here.
Yeah.
They teach children Chinese culture.
No.
Chinese,
yeah. But you know why? Because they plan on going back.
Although they're American more than Chinese, but still they speak their language or their practice.
That's fine. But I'm saying even with the Spanish, but you know what's happening with all of these people, Fatia? After second or third generation, they can't maintain it. They can't. I'm telling you, you can maintain this for one, maybe two generations. After that, you can't maintain it. I remember growing up, all of the Spanish kids spoke English with an accent. All of them. They're kids who were born here. Now you're starting to enter the third and fourth generation, and they're all losing their accent, and their Spanish is becoming more English than Spanish. It's not sustainable. It's just not a sustainable model. And like I said, there's a difference between teaching our kids to be proud of their heritage. But how many of these people from Kenya or Egypt or from Libya or even myself from Pakistan, how many of us actually sat down and taught our children the history of the continent or the history of the area? No, we have to be proud of our language and our food. Until when? How long am I going to be proud of language and food? And what if I like American food better than I like this food? I'm saying, me being born here, if somebody gives me brownies, I like it more than I would like kunafa. Like that's just me. I don't. There's certain cultural foods that I prefer in American society, like American Western cultural food, than I do other ones. I remember our brother came and he gave Samir he gave him like chocolate chip cookies and he gave me baklava, and I was like, man, you got it backwards, bro. Like, yeah. I was like, I said the cookie should have been for me and the baklava should have been for him. Like, I'm not a huge fan of these things. I'm not a fan of Eastern sweets. It doesn't mean I dislike them, but at the end of the day is like, we have to understand where to put the value. If I'm teaching, like, for example, I'm learning now as I'm getting older, the value in poetry and the Urdu language. But now I'm older now, and this is something that I'm learning myself. I learned the history of the Indo-Pak continent because for me, when people talk about Pakistan is only 60, 70 years old. But there's an entire 2,000 years worth of history that was before the founding of the state. But this is where we get caught up. It's like we're caught up in Somalia, we're caught up in Ethiopia, we're caught up in, Eritrea, we're caught up in these spaces without realizing the history goes far beyond the state that was made 60, 70 years ago. That's where the heritage and that's where the pride comes in. If we want our children to be proud of something, we have to teach them that. We teach them their history. We don't teach them just the language. Language has value. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But for me, growing up and learning Urdu is like, okay, why? So I can watch Bollywood films. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no, there was no inherent value for me to go and actually learn the language. And the same thing, if we want our children to learn Somali, or if we want these things to continue, or if we want that culture to continue, we have to show them why there's value in learning that language. Because if someone says, okay, well, it's good to know other languages, well, I can go learn Spanish and it's more useful for me as an American. Right? Or someone can come to me, like even in Islamic studies, someone might be like, okay, well, you learn Arabic. What other languages would you like to learn, Sheikh Farhan? I said probably either French or German. Why? Because there's so many works, Orientalist works on Islam that talk about Islam in those languages. There's a value, you understand, there's a value in those things. But we have to make sure and instill that value in or Italian if you're Fatia, right? So like you have to instill value in these things so that our children learn the importance of heritage and where we're from, not just from today. But the problem is we can't pass down those values because many of us don't know.
That's true.
Like we never learned. Like we never learned the history of where we were. We never learned the history of what we did. We never learned the history of what we contributed to society and to humanity. Even when we go back to our home countries, what do? We just mix with our families. Do we take them around to the historical sites and tell them about these places? Yeah.
But in Minnesota,
Yeah.
the white American, they learn Somali language.
That's fine.
And they dress up like Somalians.
Okay. Come back to me in 2 generations.
She's just like me.
No, I'm saying,
She have better Somalian language than I.
which is fine, but giving individual cases doesn't give here in America has Spanish taken over?
The big picture.
No, you have to look at the big picture.
Yeah.
You can't just look in like, just in Minnesota or just in Virginia or just in these places. You have to look at the larger picture. A vast majority of the public, they speak English. And a vast majority of the public, they ascribe to American culture. Right? Because there's a mutual interest there, because it's easier for me when I go to a government office. It's easier for me when I open a business. It's easier for me when I apply for a credit card. It's easier for me when I go to purchase a home. It's easier for me when I go to rent a car to speak Somali or to speak English. To speak English, right? There's a mutual benefit in everybody speaking the same language. And that's why there's a push for that. All of the schools, they speak English, right? And even the second or third languages that they offer, they're just the major ones that they're able to teach and the ones that they're able to offer. And I'm not saying there's not value in these things, but we have to create the value. If we don't create the value, there isn't going to be one. And I can force my kids, but are they going to force theirs?
No.
Do you understand? Like I said, he's like, oh, it might be happening today. Just wait 2 generations. You don't even have to wait. You know what I mean? You don't have to wait long. Just wait 2 generations. 2 generations, you're talking about 60 years.
One generation, my daughter has children only English.
Yeah, only English. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and why? Because we didn't teach the value, right? We just forced them. And forcing them is not going to carry the value forward. But like I said, a lot of the problems is with our own ignorance. If I don't know the history of where I'm from, how am I going to teach it to my kids?
But if I know,
no. If you know, then you have to teach.
I do. My son is fluent.
No, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. If I asked them 100 years ago what was in Somalia and what was going on, 200 years ago what was going on,
They speak Arab language.
500 years ago what was going on. So you just stuck on the language, Fatia. It's not about the language. It's about what culture. What were they offering? What were they building? What were their contributions to society? Was there a trade route that came through there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are so many questions that we have to teach to our children so that they understand the value of these places and the things that happen. It's not good enough that, well, I passed on the language. No, I'm sorry. It's not good enough. There needs to be more value than
It's
that.
unfortunate they've become more
Yeah.
Americanized.
Is it unfortunate?
I think so.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Yes.
Yeah, is it true that those you teach the kids the historical and history?
Yeah.
It would be so interesting.
Yeah, they'll be interested themselves. I agree. Yeah. Yeah.
When they learn, oh
Mhm.
wow, that history has a
Yeah.
great historical background.
Yes.
I want to know where I want to go. Was one lady and one lady at my work. She's about 60, 70 years old.
Mhm.
Oh, she said, Amma, I see the discovery or something like
Yeah.
and it's historical.
Yeah.
The way what it was, the
Mhm.
Quran and everything. I'm interested to visit
Yes.
Egypt.
Yeah. Because that's something that we all take it, like for us to take pride in something. For example, if you're Egyptian and you see the pyramids, the pyramids, yes, they were built by people who didn't worship Allah. These people are mushrik, but is it part of the heritage? Was it a contribution to the human civilization? Yeah, it was. These huge buildings that they used without any animals. Like it's mind-boggling how you could structure all of these things and build these structures. Now, whether they did it the right way because they abuse people, whatever. That's not the point. The point is the contributions that people make. And okay, so coming back to why is it unfortunate that our kids are American?
Well, because America really doesn't have a culture.
I fundamentally disagree.
Really?
Yes, America here, hard work is valued, trust is valued. Like there's a reason people come to America. It's not an accident. So over here, if I'm pulled over by the police, is it from the culture for me to pay him a bribe? I'm asking. This is antithetical to American culture. This is unacceptable.
That's because America puts fear in people. They know they're going to go to prison, and prison here is way worse than in your country.
No, it's not.
Really?
You just go to any third world country. I challenge you. Any third world country in the world today. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Moms bring food to
No. So the thing is, like, you're talking. Why? You know why? Because they're not fed otherwise.
Oh.
It's not by accident that people are taking food to their kids in jail. They're taking food to the kids in jail, otherwise they're not going to be fed. Yeah.
You pay informally in prison
Yeah.
to take a shower.
Yeah.
In order to get the shower, you pay inside for the
You
security.
pay for shower facilities as a prisoner. Like, where are you getting your money from? Like, I mean, like it's extremely problematic. So you're talking about even this idea of fear. You're telling me in places where people are deathly afraid of the government, that's not the case. Even over here, can I argue with the officer?
No.
Yes, I can, and I have multiple times. Me personally.
Yeah, you could go to court.
No, I can argue with him right there. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous. What are you talking about? And there are certain places you will get shot for even looking up at the officer.
Yeah.
Over here, you don't hear this. Where did you pray Jummah today? Why did you pray there? How often have you been going? Has anybody ever experienced that here? Here.
Like in some countries in the Middle East, we're not even allowed.
You're not even allowed to.
Gatherings.
So you want to talk about culture?
Isn't that like built on the political system that they have here in the United States?
So what the political system is found on freedom or oppression?
Well, yeah, sure, it's found on freedom, but
Does it mean that there aren't people who are oppressed? Absolutely. Right. You're going to have people who abuse the system. But my question is, like, here, people be like, well, you can get locked away. And we'll get back to your point. But I'm saying do you get people who are locked away unjustly? Do you have unjust things that happen? Do you have oppressions that happen? Sure. But compare that, and I'm talking about subjectively, to other countries. Over those countries, if somebody doesn't like someone, they can be jailed. Like, you're an enemy to the prince. You don't like somebody in the government, you disappear. Over here, do people disappear? Yeah, but is it on the same scale?
No.
It happens. Like I said, it happens. But is it on the same scale? And this is where we talk about corruption. Is there corruption present in the US? Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. But is it on the same scale as in other places?
so you're saying that America is unique in its culture because it's less corrupt?
Yes, I think that's part of it, for sure. I do think it's, like I said, I think it's subjectively less corrupt than other places. Doesn't mean that corruption doesn't exist. I'm not a fool. I see it, but it doesn't mean that it's worse than other places.
That's true.
Yeah.
I guess what other thing does the United States offer in terms of culture outside of that?
Okay, so here, ask a teacher or a fireman or a policeman or any public servant why they work. Why are they even dedicated to their jobs? They just love their jobs. They love their work. You know what I mean? Like, that work ethic is something that is definitely part of the American system. The problem is, in a lot of the other countries, it's through networking that you'll get into the police. It's through networking that you'll get into the fire department, because those people are usually well paid and they're part of the crime syndicate. Like it's unfortunate. Many times they're part of the crime structure. So in order for your case to even get solved, you'll have to pay the right person, or you'll have to get to the right person. So it's either how you're networked or how much money you have. Many times police will be in on a lot of the things. Not to say it doesn't happen here, but it's less. Yeah. I'm sorry.
If they get
Mhm.
big check, they take.
Yeah. So the thing is,
they keep their job.
I mean,
What I have.
does it happen? Yes, it does. I'm not a fool, but over here, like
If you
uh-huh.
give,
oh, you'll go to jail.
you never take.
No, he won't take. You'll go to
You
jail.
won't take. But
Uh-huh.
in some way, in
Mhm.
other levels, they take.
Again, akhi, I'm not here to dismiss that it doesn't happen, but does it happen on the same scale? No. Over there, like the traffic police stop you and you give them a bribe to get away. Over here, it happened here one time. It happened here one time where the guy, he was about to give him a ticket, and the guy gave him, he pulled out $20.
They tried.
No, he pulled out $20. The guy immediately called for his backup, and he said, "This guy's going to jail." He would have gone to jail for 2 years.
Yeah.
For $20. This is minimum sentencing for bribing a federal official.
Don't bribe them.
So I'm saying, like,
Well, it does
there's
happen.
again, I'm not
But
dismissing that.
But high level, they take
Like I'm
bribe.
saying,
They
it
take
happens less, at the least it happens on a level where the common person doesn't see it.
bribe. Yeah.
So if I go to get a permit, for example, to get an extension on my house, they'll tell me, okay, these are the 10 things you have to do. If I bring those 10 things, I submit the application. Most of the time, what happens? I'll get the extent, I'll get the permit, and I'll go back. Back in our countries, what do I have to do?
You have to pay a lot of money.
You have to pay a lot of money. Not just that, I will not be going once. I can guarantee it. It is not a one-time submission and you're done. You will make at least 5 to 10 trips just to get the permit on something that you own. So the thing is, like, are there good things? Like, you're talking about the cleanliness and all these other things. There are a lot of praiseworthy things that are part of American culture that do exist that we shouldn't ignore. Are there bad parts to it? Yeah, the open sexuality, hugely problematic. The lack of respect in terms of the family structure, hugely problematic. You know what I mean? Like, but here, as a Muslim, what can I do? I can take those good things and I can teach my kids to stay away from the bad ones. Right? That's what I should do. There's so many good characteristics here, like the ability for my kids to challenge me, right? This is not an Eastern concept. This is a very Western one. My kids to challenge me and say, we disagree, or we don't like this, or we don't want to do that. Would you guys agree that this is generally a Western thing? Right? Eastern thing is more submission. If your parents tell you to do something, you do that. I'm actually proud of my kids, because when they challenge me for certain things, all I have to do is they will challenge me and they'll tell me why. I'll be like, okay, I need you to take out the trash. Okay, I will take it out. I can't do it right now because I have to finish my homework. Okay, I'll be like, okay, how much homework do you have? You know what I mean? Like, then you can have an exchange. But that ability to even have exchange in certain cultures is not happening. Yeah, that's it. I don't care what you're doing. It's like, okay, I'm cooking something right now. Like, no, take out the trash. Yeah, having that exchange, it doesn't mean, so there's a difference between being disrespectful, and disrespect can be controlled. How do you teach your kids disrespect? By telling them, you can't talk to me like that. You have a right to disagree, but you can't talk to me like that.
Do you think that
Yeah.
there's like a lack of critical thinking skills amongst Muslims or
Yes.
other cultures because of it?
Yeah.
I agree.
So the thing in America, someone was asked me, like, okay, well, what is one of the reasons that you would move to a Muslim country? I said, I would be less worried about my kids leaving Islam. Right? That's a fear I would definitely have less. And they're like, okay, but what are the reasons that you're staying in America? I was like, because they can critically think. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a double-edged sword. So over here, they can critically think. They can ask me questions over here that they wouldn't have been able to ask in many of their home countries. My kids, they said to me one time, they're like, Baba, isn't it kind of sus that Khadr just kills this kid? Khadr, like, the story of Musa and Khadr kills this kid. And they're like, how's that okay? This is something that would not be an acceptable question. It wouldn't be an acceptable question. It's like, what are you talking about? No, that's not what you just accept it. Just keep going. Look at so many other lessons. And no, like, you have to engage, and you have to figure out, like, okay, how do I engage this issue?
You said Pakistan?
Huh?
You said Pakistan.
I was in Pakistan. So this trip was probably my worst one. And it was the worst one because I felt like I couldn't practice. I was going out like, well, you can't dress like that. My wife was like, you can't hold my hand in public because people say that it's weird. I couldn't make a second jama'at when I walked into a masjid. I walked in late from Maghrib. They're like, no, you can't make a second jama'at. They said the administration was going to come and talk to you. I was like, why do I feel more restricted here than I do in America? Like, it's so odd. It's so bizarre.
Do you feel like in Pakistani madrasas, there's like a desperate clinging on to like medieval books of fiqh that like are far removed from? So
this is across the Muslim world. This is not a uniquely Indo-Pak construct.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it's the books of
Yeah,
who reads these books.
Yeah, it's
They're
well,
dogmatic.
so it's very dogmatic. It's very much like it's a very taqlidi process, meaning that this is how the book is, this is how you carry it forward. The next person, this is how the book is, this is how you carry it forward. There is no critical thinking, right? How do you actually engage? Why is it that Ibn Qudama said this? Or why is it this, Sharumbuli said this? Or why is it that, you know what I mean? Like, why did Nawawi say this? But that question of why is extremely problematic in some of these places. Like I had, one of my friends told me that his sister, she started practicing. So she was like, okay, I want to go to the madrasa because I want to learn some more. And they were doing like 40 hadith of Nawawi or something. And she was like, why did he choose 40? I mean, just like a very basic question. It's not something they're like, you're not at a point where you can ask questions. You just take it as it is, and you have to keep moving and just keep memorizing. It's silly, you know what I mean? Like just very simple, very basic things. Like Nawawi himself tells us why he put 40. Like if you just read the introduction, he'll tell you why he put 40 hadith together. But that's beyond that. Like there's a ego that exists in the clergy class in the Eastern world that is extremely problematic. And I think this is across all religions. I don't think this is a uniquely Islamic problem. So what happens is the clergy, they became gatekeepers, right? So, well, you can't really read the Quran until you've studied like 13 sciences. You can't really engage. You can't do this or you can't do that, because they were the only thing that they could own was what? Was deen. And giving other people access to it, what happens? My importance diminishes. So you need to have that sense of control. Does it mean that it's everything that they're producing is bad? No, I don't think so. I don't think I don't think it's completely negative, but this critical thinking is because you're having, you know what happened? A lot of Western people actually started infiltrating these places. Like Western students started going overseas to study, and they were like, hey, I don't get it. Why is it like this? Forcing a lot of people to think. You have a lot of Eastern writers engaging Western works, and they're forced to critically think now. So the West has had it's had a negative and a positive influence on the Eastern societies. What is the negative influence? A lot of the Eastern youth, they're blindly following who? Like celebrities, right? They're blindly following celebrities and like, popular culture and stuff like that. But this same American culture, has it not produced some of the greatest minds in the past century? Like, you're talking about like nuclear energy, like, like the internet, like these are huge steps for mankind. Like how many Muslims utilize these tools? Like everyone, right? Every Muslim utilizes all of the inventions that have come out of the West. In some ways we've bettered them, some ways we're using them worse. That's again, that's a different discussion. But the point is, whenever there's good, Islam is not a destructive religion. It's a constructive one. The Prophet ﷺ, when he came into Mecca, he didn't say, oh, you guys are all mushrik, bam, destroy everything, we're going to start anew. What did he do? He took honor. He took leadership. He took truth, right? He took all of the things that were praised within the culture. He took generosity. And what did he do? He built on those. And we as Muslims have to do the same thing. I hate this us versus them, like, oh, us versus the Americans. No, it's nobody versus anybody. It's about all of us trying to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and get closer to him and better our relationship with him, and bettering our relationship with him. You know what's going to happen automatically? We're going to better our relationship with the people around us. It's very natural. It's very natural that these things come. People want good. People want good. It just takes time. And sometimes it takes a mentality. Like these things have to change. There are this us versus them mentality. It needs to go. It really needs to go. It's just more, it's caused more harm and destruction than any help that it's brought. I think we're out of time.
Just a story. I heard Khalifa Umar in his government, he had Roman experts who helped him establish government.
Okay, I don't see that to be far-fetched. The thing, when you're even the first people to rise to political power in the Muslim Empire, the Persians. Do you know why? Because they had experience of governance. Like the Arabs, they had like zero experience in governance. Like they didn't have anything. They were like literally tribal people who had the head of the Qabila who kind of ran things. He would be the ones who said yes or no. Then they had Islam come. They were forced to move into cities because the Arabs were a Bedouin people. They were constantly migrating. They were then forced to move into cities, which is something that was, again, new to them. Set up a societal structure, again, something new to them. Setting up standing armies, again, something that was new to them. Look at what Islam did for them. Look at what Islam did for them. Why isn't it doing the same thing for us? Maybe because we're not implementing it the right way. So, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq. جزاكم الله خير والله أعلم وصلى الله على خير خلق نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Any closing questions? Sorry for my rant. Yeah, no problem. I like American culture. I don't really have a problem. They enjoy the outdoors. Like I love going out. You know what I mean? Like if yes, like if I was an American, I'd never know about canoeing. You know.
You do canoeing now?
Yeah, I love it. It's like it's one of the most relaxing things. Just you in the river, like it's it. Like, or you in the lake. It's really nice. Yeah. It is a very open society. Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing, like, and Americans are actually they're very open and accepting people. Yes. Yeah. You're actually, you know what? I do agree with you. They're very open and accepting people. I lived in Stanton, which is like in the Shenandoah Valley, predominantly white American. I would wear a thobe. My wife was wearing niqab at the time. Like we didn't have any problems. Like people were really nice. Yeah. Like they would send over flowers. Like when we moved into the neighborhood, like just really nice, open, accepting people. And I know not everybody has had my experience. Like, and I'm not here to judge everybody's experience off of my lone one, but in general, if we are open and accepting, if we are outgoing, if we can go and approach, like if we just keep to ourselves and keep hiding ourselves, nobody's going to accept that. But if we are going across the street, if we're sending gifts when somebody moves into the neighborhood, we can change the entire attitude very quickly. When was the last time we hosted a block party in our neighborhood? You know, like very honestly, when was the last time we went around, invited our neighbors to our house to come and for a barbecue? Like these are very low stakes, very easy things. Or tea, or sending something during Ramadan across the street, you know, sending some food to the neighbors just to let them know that it's Ramadan.
Yeah.
These are very small. No, alhamdulillah, it's the culture is starting now, but these are very small gestures.
Well, it used to be that.
And it used to be that way. You know who changed it? We did. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, the thing is, it became such a melting pot. So you're talking about like the reason that it was easier for people to send things back and forth before, because everybody knew each other. But the thing is, there's like so many people, you know, there's a lot of influx in people. There's a lot of people who come and go. It's very difficult to get to know people when people aren't actually, you know, staying in the same place. It's very rare. Like when I came to Northern Virginia, this is probably the first time in my movement throughout the US that I've actually seen a place where kids who grew up here stayed here.
Oh yeah, I've been here all my life.
Yeah, so which is for me is like mind blowing. I don't every place I've been to, by the time kids are like in college, they're already on their way out, right? They're already looking to leave and to be somewhere else. People who graduate and finish here, they're looking to find ways to stay, which is like it's really different for me. It's really different experience for me. But I was in Jersey before here. I lived in Connecticut for like 10 years. I was in Ohio for some time. And then my parents have moved around quite a bit. So I lived in California for a year. They were in Arkansas. They were in Texas. So I've seen I've seen like good chunks of the US. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Somebody give me tickets for the Hajj. Like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
They pay me my hotel and everything.
Yeah.
I was not thinking I'd jump and get it. Because I was thinking of the Kaaba in front of me.
Yeah.
Somebody said that's your not money. That Hajj is not
it is your money because it's a gift. So when as soon as something is gifted, then whose property is it? It's yours.
Yeah.
That's it. Of course. Of course. Inshallah. Why not? I'm saying the moment something is gifted to someone else, the ownership transfers from one person to another, and that becomes that person's ownership. What's the problem?
I'm able to do so. I have my money. Somebody gives me, if I give
it, then that becomes your money. Because why? Because it became your money.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Yeah.
An annoying question.
Absolutely.
Is there no khiyar on a gift then?
There is.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, you don't have to accept. Yeah, if I'm allergic to walnuts and somebody gives me walnuts,
No, I mean,
If-
khiyar from the giver.
Oh, from the giver. Once he give here, from the point he has intention to the point that he takes it over to the person who he's gifting it to, the moment that ownership is transferred, that's it. It's not his anymore. He can ask for it. He can ask for it. Why? Because he's asking for the ownership to be transferred back to him. But you can't come and ask like it's your right, like this is mine, because it's no longer yours. Does that make sense?
So I'm not no more stingy.
Huh?
I have my own money. If somebody gives me,
It's your money.
Haji,
If you make hajj,
it's good.
it's good, yeah.
It's fair.
Of course. Why not?
Sometimes you are stingy.
Huh?
You are stingy.
That's fine. You say make dua for me. No, you say make dua for me. I'm going to Arafah.
Thank you.
No problem.